Natalie, thank you so much for being here with us today. How are you? How are the islands today?
Beautiful. Thank you so much for having me, Jess. I'm really excited to have a chat.
Yeah, me too. I really enjoyed the reading that I had done with you. I think it was last month or the month before. It was really informative. There were things that I already knew, and the validation that you helped me come to with the reading was really helpful and motivating me to do something different and to start acting in alignment with what has been coming through for me to do on a personal level. I'm wondering how you got into this work and how does it feel to do and be in your purpose in this way?
Yeah, so I used to be a graphic designer about a little over 5 years ago, and I loved that. I thought that was my purpose. But then slowly over time, I felt like it was really surface level, and a lot of things in my life kind of fell apart. That made me want to think more about the bigger picture and why I'm really here, like a near-death experience, for instance.
Hmm.
And through that, I was like following my horoscope every day, and it was giving me like life. It was showing me that things are going to be okay. They're going to get better, and here's why you feel this way. So I decided to dive deeper into it and found out that we have an entire astrology chart based on our birth date, time, and location that has everything we ever wanted to know about ourselves. I thought that was so fascinating. So I just gobbled up everything I could about it. And now I use astrology to help people tap into their calling and do what they love for a living. So I basically came to it because I didn't know. And now that I figured it out for myself, I just try to spread it as to as many people as possible.
Yeah, so you have group meetings on a regular basis, right? During every month, do you have like pretty large community that dials into these calls?
Yeah, actually, we started doing weekly calls now.
Oh,
So I'm
wow.
doing a lot of teaching, trying to fill up a whole library of about everything I know about astrology, and it just like doesn't ever end.
I can imagine it. I mean, it's pretty infinite, just like we are, right? That universe that we come from, that we are, is infinite and endless and limitless. And to really tap into its magic and the secrets that it holds for us is a really interesting way to help us move through life and to make it feel, like you said, easier. Like, okay, great, like this feels really crappy right now, but my horoscope says that this is going to clear by this time, and maybe at that point then things will start to feel or be a little easier. And that validation, I find, just to give our mind that peace of mind so we can not be mired down by the negative feelings or the experiences that we might be having in that moment.
Yes, and it also shows you why you're going through it and why it's actually good for you, even though it doesn't feel good, which is
The
so helpful.
why. Yeah, the why. That's what we tend to overlook, right? When we're going through something, we say, well, why me? But we're not really looking at why it's happening.
Yeah, for you instead of like to you.
Yeah, that victim slides in there.
Hmm.
Cool. So when you're doing readings, do you also have, I imagine there is some intuition on your part as well, and working with your guides and your higher self. Like, how does that work for you? And do you have some sort of ritual that you tap in with?
Yeah, I love that question so much. It's something that not a lot of people realize that astrology is kind of a form of channeling in a way, because I'm taking everything I've ever learned about astrology, every single conversation I've ever had, and I have like a whole library of it in my mind. But I am also working with guides, and I don't always like purposely tap into it. I just know they're there, and what I do is actually say a prayer before every session, and I call on my angels. Angels are like my favorite thing to work with, and just kind of like ask for the cosmic guidance to flow through me for the highest good of the client. And I do the same thing afterwards so that I'm kind of like cutting that cord. I'm not bringing the person
Mm.
energy with me. I used to have a really big problem with that. I can't believe I just started doing that this year. Because I care so much about people. I'm a double Pisces and I have Jupiter in Cancer, all this watery, emotional energy. So I get really attached to everybody that I want to help. So that kind of helps me. And it also just helps me trust that whatever's going to come through is what's meant to come through, because not every reading is going to give every single answer you're looking for. Sometimes it actually gets you to ask way more questions.
Hmm.
And I just have learned to trust that I'm kind of like a navigator with you. And, just like, yeah, whatever's meant to be is meant to be for that day.
That's awesome. Yeah, when I first started doing energy work as well, it was this very clear, the very first message was very, very clear to me was ground. Remember how to ground. Remember that grounded is not stuck. It means starting from a healthy foundation and having a healthy foundation to begin from. And then the next part was, really be considerate of how you're connecting in with people. And at the end of the day, to have some sort of intentional cutting of cords to honor that interaction, to honor the souls intertwining, to share that information, and then to honor the letting go and allowing you and that person to be on their own journey. Like I always look at it as we're all moving together. We're all moving forward together separately. Like there is no separation. We experience duality here. We experience this thing called separation. And at the end of the day, it's one. And if you're looking at it from this human perspective, we're all moving together forward separately because we all have our own unique way of expressing this energy of God or universe in the flesh here. And I always find that fascinating. If I don't, make a considerate effort or an intentional effort to cut cords at the end of the day, then I physically don't feel well. Does that happen to you too?
Yeah, I soak up everything like a sponge. Like, even if I'm in the hallway and someone gives me a weird look, I will think about it for like 3 days, even though like they're probably just tired and it has nothing to do with me. So it's been a gift for me to realize that I am this way, so that there's like actually stuff I need to do about it. Like you gotta brush your teeth, you gotta take a
Yeah.
shower, and I gotta cleanse my energy.
Yeah. How do you do that?
A lot of it's just working with angels and working with Merkaba, like
Mm.
drawing like light grids around myself and saying a prayer. And it's really powerful. I ask the angels to clear all my fears and attachments, and it's like instant. I'm like, okay, I'm good
Mhm.
now.
And are you visualizing all of this in your mind's eye?
Yep, I visualize light above and below, and then it kind of intertwines.
Hmm.
And my angel teacher actually taught me about this when I did angel messenger school.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I really like the Merkaba as well. I've worked with that also in different sessions and then realized I could work with that in the clearing too. Um, and that's the portal also, right? That opening there.
Yeah, it's like a spaceship to higher dimensions, which was like really crazy for me at first.
Hmm.
So I mainly just use it to cleanse now.
Awesome. So you're not taking off into the cosmos in it anymore?
Sometimes I do. It comes on suddenly, and sometimes I'll spend like a week just like downloading all this information, and then I come down to Earth from that, and I'm like, whoa.
Wow.
But most of the time I'm on Earth, just kind of sharing what I
Mhm.
learned when I was going through that.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have moments like that too, where I'll be in an experience and it will last for however long it lasts. And when we come back, it's kind of like, whoa, oh, like I know my body was here and I was fully grounded in that foundation of Jessica. And I also know that I was experiencing something somewhere else at the same time.
Yeah, it's like a whole new level of Earth School, but it's like tapping into the other realms at the
Hmm.
same time.
Yeah, like experiencing, multiple dimensions at the same time. When that first happened to me, when I was working with a teacher who was mainly teaching or sharing Toltec practices or, practices based on the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, he would, talk about that. And I really had only experienced it one time when I had my awakening 15 years ago. And it was a very clear, like, wow, I was like floating above my body, looking down and at my body and the practitioner. And I was like, wow, that's never happened before. Very interesting. And then when I met him and was in like after the first couple nights of class that we were doing, I was watching him drawing something on the board, talking about the difference between um, the linear path of learning and then the path of growth. and he was drawing on the board this like straight line for the path of linear learning, right? It's just this straight line, and there's really not really any growth. You just keep moving forward. And then you look at the path of growth, which is like a staircase, right? And you continue to go straight, and then you go up and straight and go up. And as he was doing that, I was also experiencing myself in like this other vision, and I was like out in the blackness of space, the stars and the planets floating around me, and I was floating out there like a spaceman in a spacesuit, and I was looking down at the earth, and all of a sudden I could feel like the love of the earth. And then I saw this big huge sheet of like white diamond light like floating over the earth and covering the whole earth. And then I could feel what that transformation was for the earth, like what we're doing right now as a collective, creating a space for higher consciousness and to be in a higher consciousness here in this body, instead of just when we die, remembering everything. We're remembering now in this physical body without dying. And I could see, or I could feel what that felt like, but I don't know what it looks like on the planet in the physical yet. And I keep coming back to that vision and just going, wow, like I know what that feels like. And I just keep remembering that feeling when the outside picture of the world doesn't always feel like it matches it. So I imagine when you're peeking into the astrology and the charts of people that you're working with, or even for yourself, like you have those moments too. Like, are there any moments that you can think of right now in this moment that feel like that to you, or that gave you that that very big knowing or that validation of something?
That's amazing. I loved hearing your experience. I think with astrology, like every time, it just feels like an awakening of like channeling that energy into the world that we're like spreading to wake people up and realign with our greater potential and our greater ability. So it's kind of like I don't really get the downloads when I'm doing that. I'm much more focused on like the person and awakening them.
Hmm.
But like outside of that, when I have spiritual awakenings, that's when I have those kind of moments like you described, where I'm like understanding the nature of evolution and consciousness. And I'm just like asking my guides why over and over, and they're answering. And I'm like, okay, I asked way too many questions. Now I'm gonna go freak out. Because sometimes the truth is like not something we don't really feel ready for, even if it is in our best interest to know it.
Yeah. What was your answer for the information about evolution?
Oh my goodness, it never ends. There's so much more to it. Like we'll just become ascended masters and just keep floating higher and higher. So it's like it's really exciting though. I love school, so it was like good news for me. But
Yeah.
also to like slow down because there's always going to be another level, and you don't need to push so hard because there's just going to be like whatever's your next edge is what's going to come up over and over.
Mm, gotcha. I like that. Yeah, I really like the moving up as well. Like it's not about like it being better or worse. It's simply ascending, right? And ascending into higher parts of yourself. And whatever higher is, it's simply allowing yourself to expand out and into yourself. And that's the part that I wish people would consider a little bit more, instead of seeing their self as this little tiny human car, that they drive around on this earth. And we're so much more than that. And we can create, whatever we want if we let go of the limiting, you know, belief that we have of this little human body, because that's not really who we are.
Yeah, and even beyond that, like our actions every day can create really practical, grounded change as well. Like somebody invented a toilet and everyone has a toilet now. Like I know it's kind of a funny
Thank
example, but
God.
little things like that, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I don't even like we don't really consider that some days, and then if you go to a third world country sometimes, I know when I was in Indonesia for a month, they don't really have toilets. They have, little footies and a hole in the ground, and then you have to squat. And if you don't have very strong, quads, like that's kind of a hard thing to do, and you're trying to balance, your skirt and your underwear and your purses and everything. And yeah, just a simple toilet. Like what an amazing invention that is, and then that we get to use that now and be in such luxury, actually.
Yeah, and it was just in someone's imagination at one point.
That's crazy. Everything, that's where everything starts, right? It starts with the imagination. We have a thought, we have a feeling, we speak our truth, we share it with people, and then that thing is created in the physical. And it's like, wow, what else can we do with that, brain up there if we
So
direct it.
much.
Yeah, instead of the autopilot that we're usually in.
And all the distractions. Oh my goodness.
What's one thing that is a distraction for you?
Ah, social media. I
Me
love
too.
I love people. I love chatting.
Me too. Me too.
And then I don't get as much done, or I kind of feel like burnt out from it. Like
Mm,
just my hands hurt, and just like I realize what I've been doing all day is like not a good
yeah.
ergonomic position. So trying
Yeah.
to get better at that.
Yeah. What are your self-care modalities to take care of your body and your mind and soul?
I really love yoga and meditation and just like studying Vedic philosophy a lot too. So, yeah, a lot of mainly like yoga and meditation and
Mhm.
slowing down and just choosing a whole day where I'm not going to work or do anything. And it could be a Monday or a Wednesday, it doesn't matter, but I'm just feeling like
Mm,
I need that rebalancing. So, a lot of it's like listening to my body and checking in with my energy and then just asking myself, what do I really need today? Is it to check off my to-do list? Probably not. It's probably not going to matter if I don't tell people about this full moon immediately. I can probably like take care of myself first.
There's lots of other people posting about it too. It
Yes.
is tomorrow morning, but we experience it this evening and the 2 days before and after. Yeah.
Yep. And sometimes it's like more clear for people afterward,
Mm,
anyways. So I'm trying not to pressure myself so much to like give everybody the update all the time.
yeah. And do you also receive like healing sessions or massage or chiropractic? Like, are those some things that you practice as well?
Yeah, sometimes more than others. I really love Reiki. I just discovered
Mm.
someone who does acupuncture and Reiki in the same
Ah.
session, and it was like incredible. I need to do that again.
Mm-hmm.
And I also get readings sometimes. I have a friend who channels Krishna and a bunch of Hindu deities. So if I'm feeling really lost, sometimes I check in with her, and they always tell me to like burn everything down. And I'm like, okay, I'll burn like half of it down, but I don't think I'm ready to burn all of it down. So that's always fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I there's an acupuncturist back in San Jose that I partnered with, and we did sound healing with acupuncture. So she would do like a set protocol for each person. It would be the same protocol for each. And then I would do a sound healing session and actually bring the bowls over their bodies as well. And the feedback was that it was a little bit more of an intense inside vibration that they would feel from the bowls when I would go around.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love sound healing as well. I actually just went to a ceremony
Oh,
for that, which was really nice. But wow, that's like a whole new level. I love it.
yeah, I had visions of it years ago, and I actually have done other sessions with other practitioners also. And then the last one was with this practitioner in San Jose, which was really powerful. And we did it in groups too. So you have all these people laid out with needles and vibe in with the sounds and a little bit of yoga at the beginning just to warm up our bodies too. So it's a really beautiful workshop that we did. Um, I
Mm.
haven't found an acupuncturist out here yet, though, so maybe that's next on my list for a workshop. We'll see.
Yeah, it feels so good.
Yeah. So you are working with clients, mainly groups, but you've started to do individual readings again, correct?
Yeah, actually a lot of it's because I'm kind of testing out some new ideas. So
Mm,
I'm like, yes, I'm giving readings, but I'm also secretly doing research on everybody at the same time.
awesome. We love that because the more you do that, the more expansive and more wisdom you're able to share here.
Yeah, ultimately, I think I want to focus on writing books,
Hmm.
and it helps to talk to so many people about things so that I can make sure it really resonates with
Hmm.
everyone. So, a lot of my research starts in one-on-one and then moves into the group, and then hopefully, eventually, it will get turned into a book at some point.
Nice. And you are publishing a book soon, correct?
Yeah.
And what is that book called?
It's called Find Your Cosmic Calling, a guide to discovering your life's work with astrology. So it's all of the research I've been doing for the past 5 years about helping people tap into what they're really here to do for a living and then go do it.
Hmm.
And it's just all summarized in there. So it's just really easy to look up your own astrology chart or even to use it to look up other people's charts. And you don't need to know astrology ahead of time. But if you
Hmm.
do, it just kind of like makes it a little bit easier.
Nice. And is the book going to have like kind of workbook things in it too, like exercises to practice besides the guide to doing your chart?
There's like one journal page, I think. I think the hardest thing about this book is my publisher really wanted to make it very visual.
Hmm.
And so I had to make everything really summarized. And luckily, that's one of my gifts, but it was like kind of painful sometimes to cut things out. So I didn't get to put like everything I wanted to put in the book, but there
Hmm.
are like some moments to stop and reflect on what you're learning about yourself so far.
Very cool. And what do you have like a certain, well, like a theme among the clients that you're working with? Are they mainly women or men, or do you have a pretty even audience there, or like a particular kind of work that they're doing?
That's a great question. I would say 99% are women,
Hmm.
and they're all over the board. Like some are stay-at-home moms, some are corporate go-getters, some people are like channeling aliens. Like it's just, I never know who I'm gonna get, which I love so much. But I would say the common theme is that they feel like they're meant for more, but they're not sure what that is or how to tap into it. They're just feeling uncomfortable with what they're doing right now, and they want to change.
That's awesome that you can help guide them and give them a different perspective and provide suggestions as well.
Yeah, I love how astrology really equals the playing field. It's like truly an Aquarian art where like anybody can get so much out of it, no matter what you're used to. Even if you're not spiritual, I've had plenty of readings with people who are not really tapped into that side of themselves yet, and
Hmm.
they also get so much out of it. So it's really cool to see the aha moments that click for people.
I can imagine. And do you have readings done by other people too?
Sometimes I've actually never gotten a whole astrology reading except for a Vedic reading I got once. So a lot of this is kind of like my own interpretation on what I think an astrology reading should be.
Hmm.
But that would be pretty interesting to talk to someone and hear their perspective
Yeah,
on
I'd be
my chart.
curious. I would be curious to know like how you felt and about what they were sharing and if it resonated and or if it gave you some different perspective. I'm sure it would. And at the same time, like you have your own toolbox too, you know?
Yeah, I find that most astrologers are very technical in the way they read the chart. They like to like zoom in on all the little like aspects and angles and these what I consider minor points that I would just keep in mind when I'm doing a session for a client, but I might not actually tell them about it unless they asked a question
Hmm.
specific to it. So I like to just like really summarize things and just give the message. Whereas I notice a lot of other astrologers are like very like, yeah, very technical, and that's great. You can learn so much from that. So I think part of it I am just like really rebellious and I like doing it my way.
Well, and if you are going more with your intuition and following your, your higher self, your guides and your angels, then you're going to have a different perspective altogether too. It's kind of like, in my experience over the last 15 years of doing energy work and sound healing, when I come across like clinically trained therapists or psychoanalysts, that will come to do a session, or they're curious. There's more like emphasis on that clinical part of it, and the clinical is great, but if you're not including your intuition, if you're not going by feelings or sharing your emotions with the client as well, I don't feel like it's very helpful sometimes, because now it's a very clear, line between like you're the client, I'm the therapist, and I know these things and you know these things, and there's not really this ability I find to connect on a deeper level or to really hear what the person might be sharing with you, whether it's the therapist or the client. And I feel like traditional therapy is what it's missing is sound healing or Reiki or an astrology reading to help us incorporate all those things together, because we're not just this one dimension of clinical, aspect, or one, collection of woo woo magic aspect, right? We're all of it in this human experience. And I wish people would be a little bit more open to combining all of them together.
Yeah, because not every problem can be solved just from your mind and thinking about it and talking about it. It's really helpful. It's a great place to start, but sometimes we need that bigger, like, chakra change, you know?
Hmm.
The energy body needs some love, and
Yeah,
it will
and
shift everything on your mindset, like just like that.
exactly. And actually feeling the energy moving through your body instead of just talking about what you're feeling or what you're experiencing. Like when you have that touch in a Reiki session, or even doing a distant healing, right? Connecting in with that person distantly, you can still feel the practitioner if they're really dialed into what they're doing and the channel that they are. And I really love that aspect of remembering together, or reminding the person that you're working with of the magic within them and how they can feel into that. And it's not really thought out all the time, right? Like you said, like thinking is not, we can't always solve everything in our mind. It's about feeling what is best for us in the moment.
Yeah, people come to me because they're not feeling totally aligned. And so if you feel that way, it's true. You're not. We know that. And so that's what I love about astrology too. It's like it's an energetic language, it's an emotional language. So if I say something, you're gonna feel it on a deep level, even if you don't know how to do it or what you're gonna do exactly. You're like, yeah, that feels like the right feeling to lean into more of.
Yeah. And in your book, are you going to talk about the Vedic astrology too? Because in my reading, you did like I don't know, a regular astrology reading, and then you did a Vedic astrology reading for me as well. Are you going to be sharing that in the book too?
That might have to be a future book because
Okay.
actually I wrote the book before I got into Vedic astrology. The publishing process is so long. So I think that was actually like right when I was finishing up my book, I was getting all these downloads about Vedic astrology. And it's kind of like I was getting the next level while I
Mm,
was wrapping up the past level. And
gotcha.
I think it's good to have the Western astrology perspective as like a baseline first, because to me, Vedic astrology is about tapping into that more holy self, the more enlightened version of you that doesn't really care about money or work or a job. And we kind of need those things. So,
Yeah.
right now, anyways. So, yeah, but I definitely want to go deeper into that in the future and teach about it and hopefully write a book when I feel like I have more of a grasp on it. But that's kind of what my research is based on right now
Yeah.
by doing the sessions.
And then, so can you just like give like a Reader's Digest version of the difference between Western astrology and Vedic astrology?
Absolutely, yeah. So Western astrology is the most popular form of astrology practiced in the West. It's also known as tropical astrology. We love our egos over here. And so it's based on the path of the sun.
Hmm.
Whereas Vedic astrology is based on sidereal zodiac, which is a little bit different. So essentially, the main difference you're going to find on a Western chart versus a Vedic chart, besides the fact that they typically look super different. The version I use, they look similar, but your planets move back about 25 degrees in the Vedic version. So a lot of people will find that they're the sign before their sign
Mm.
in Western astrology. And that can be really hard to fathom because the signs that are right next to each other are super different. So it can
Hmm.
be like an ego crushing experience,
Like
which
I
I
thought I was
love.
this thing my whole life.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard to wrap your head around at first. So I'm noticing it's actually better to use it for people who are a little bit older, who are a little bit further in their career, who are not feeling as comfortable. They've done a lot of great work. They feel like they've been doing the right thing, but they're just not feeling that good about it anymore. So I'm using it more as an add-on to my work rather than only doing Vedic astrology.
Okay. That makes sense. I mean, to again, like as we were just talking about earlier, like not one modality is going to work every time. And that's why there's multiple modalities that we work with in our healing process or in astrology and sharing information and allowing people to see a different perspective. And if you're able to dig a little deeper or go deeper into yourself with the Vedic, then that, I mean, why wouldn't we do that? You know, give ourselves the opportunity.
Yeah, I think sometimes we're scared to go to that level because you have to let go of a lot of your attachments. So it took me a long time to kind of be okay with it. But now I really kind of I try to live my life by my Vedic chart. It still kind of challenges me because it's like different dimensions of you. So you're still going to be your other chart too at the same time. And it's kind of like learning when to lean on each side of yourself.
Mm, I like that. I like that visual too in my mind, like being able to, it's like the masculine and the feminine too, or the yin and the
Yes.
yang, and the black and the white, and the light and the dark, and being able to tap into both or all of those aspects of ourself.
Yes, I love that. That's a really good way to look at it for sure. Because the feminine's more about allowing things to be how they are and not trying to control everything. And I feel like that's definitely the feeling I get from the Vedic chart.
Mm, nice. So that balance there. Right on. And I imagine, I always ask people when they're on the podcast, if you feel that you're living in your purpose right now, and I imagine that that's a yes. And then is there a word, like one word that describes how it feels to be in your purpose?
Ecstatic.
I
It's
love
kind of
that.
bad sometimes. I feel high when I read a chart. I have to like deep breath myself out of it afterwards. Like it's like heavy caffeine. That's like the biggest thing I noticed. Like the moment I asked myself, what if I just became an astrologer? It was like the craziest question I could have asked myself. And I felt so excited, so lit up. I had just been super sick and almost dying, and I was like ready to go. So that's how I
Yeah.
definitely knew I was doing the right thing. I do still have moments, like as the years go by, where sometimes I'm actually starting to evolve and I'm not caught up with that yet. So then I will kind of start to like lose energy. But now I know what that means. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, there needs to be some changes. I need to slow down. I need to tune in and let myself evolve. Because even when you find your calling, there's always so many more layers. It's not like you just find it and you just do it forever. Maybe it seems like you are, but there's so many nuances that are going on in the
Mhm.
background.
Yeah. And what happened when you almost left this body?
Yeah, so it was a really crazy experience. I was just moving to the big island of Hawaii. It's really rural there.
Hmm.
And I just bought a house and I was so excited. And within 2 weeks, I woke up one morning and I was sicker than I'd ever felt in my whole life. Eventually, I went to the emergency room. They told me I had cancer. I did not have cancer, but they just
Wow.
told me I did. And I was like, I'm definitely not getting chemo. Thank goodness. I'm definitely not getting surgery. And I know that's not like the right decision for everyone, but for me, that's what I felt. And thank goodness I chose that because I didn't actually have it. And
Wow.
what it actually led me to was that near death experience where I spent over a week not sleeping, not even eating, and just learning about the cosmos and astrology and the nature of time and my past lives and all sorts of things. I found out later in a reading that I had actually planned to have that experience. So now I don't look back with so much anguish around it.
Mm.
I'm like, oh yeah, I planned that. It's fine.
Was there ever a diagnosis
I
besides
ended
cancer?
up having a bacterial infection. I actually
Mm.
went to 8 different doctors and nobody could figure it out until I went to a holistic naturopath. Thank goodness for her. And she actually didn't heal it either. She gave me a
Mhm.
lot of herbs that made me feel way worse. And it was like a synchronicity that I found what actually healed me, which was food grade hydrogen peroxide of all things.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I was sick for a total of 3 years. I was very tired all the time. I always was in pain, and that's what my business was built on, was trying to help people avoid that feeling of like just feeling so lost, feeling like you're meant for so much more and you can't do it.
Hmm.
And luckily I feel great now. So now
Hey.
I don't have to like be in so much anguish while I'm doing this work, but I had to learn not to be so much of a workaholic because I did have such a strong reason why I'm doing this that it's
Yeah.
actually been more of my challenge not to do too much of it.
Yeah, because you're in your passion and you love what you're doing, and when it doesn't feel like work, you can do it forever.
Yeah, it gives me life.
Mm. So when you worked with the um, food grade hydrogen peroxide, how did you ingest it? Did you take it with food, or was it like a process that you figured out, like how to work with it?
It was literally just a drop in a glass of water, and that was
Wow.
all it took. But I will say it was really hard because it kills your good bacteria and your bad bacteria. So I fell into a deep depression for a
Yeah.
little while, but then as my gut flora grew back, I got more energy and I felt better again and happier.
Wow, that's amazing. That's good information to have too for anyone else that might be out there experiencing something they don't have an answer for at the moment. So thank you for sharing about that.
Yeah, be careful. I'm not a doctor or anything like that, and it can have
Hmm.
adverse effects as well. So, like, be sure to do your research, of course.
Yes, always ask your doctor, always connect with a professional, and you can also take these messages and consider if they might be something to look into deeper. Because I also had a lot of medical issues growing up. Was sick from a very young age. I had my first surgery when I was 6 years old. I had my tonsils and my adenoids removed because my adenoids were actually rotting in my throat and making my tonsils inflamed. And we couldn't find a doctor to take them out because I was so young, and they didn't want to take the tonsils out because that's, one of your defense mechanisms against, getting sick and being healthy. And it just progressed on from there into allergies, and then lots of antibiotics, which totally kills your gut flora,
Hmm.
and then other things come in, and then I believe that all of that led up to the diagnosis of Crohn's disease and colitis when I was a teenager, and really moving through all of that, and then just you just don't know how you're going to react or how you're going to move through a situation, especially when it becomes debilitating and to the point where you're not able to live your life the way that you want to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I see that on your chart. It's really interesting because you have Pluto really close to your Mercury. Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth,
Ah,
and Mercury is your communication ability. So that's so interesting that it was like literally rotting. Wow.
yeah, right. And if you look in Louise Hay's "You Can Heal Your Life" book, it actually has adenoids in the glossary of symptoms that people experience. I thought, wow, that's a very strange, very unique thing to add in there. And what it represented was child not feeling wanted or welcomed in the family. And there's a story behind that too, which made complete sense to me when I read it and helped me to process through some things that I didn't know I was holding on to between my mom and I. So that was a very interesting thing to experience at that point, and not understanding it, consciously because I was only 6, and then understanding it like in my 30s and knowing like how I may have created that symptom, or the experience had created that symptom within me.
Wow, that's so fascinating because your Mercury and your Pluto are also really close to your moon, which really can represent your mom as
Mm.
well. So, wow, it's so cool. Yeah, astrology can be used for medical reasons as
Yeah,
well.
you can totally connect all the dots. And it's even more interesting that you say all of that because this whole last week, I was writing a letter to my mom. My mom is a wonderful person. We are just very different people, and we've had our hills and valleys over the years of in our relationship, and we're kind of in a little bit of a valley the last few months since I moved here, and actually a little bit before. So maybe like the last 9 months or so, it's just been kind of a I don't even know how to talk to you right now, and I'm not feeling like we are able to communicate. I feel like we're on two different planets, and we have very different views of the world currently. And so it feels like it makes it challenging for me to speak to her when really it was just about me taking some shit personally, and wanting her to be a certain way, or wanting her to be my mom instead of letting her be herself. And so the last week or so, I've been writing her this letter just to practice, number one, asking for forgiveness and acknowledging, my role in the last 9 months or the last 46 years, I could say. um, and sharing that. And I haven't sent the letter to her yet, but I felt like I I've gotten everything together, and I've read it, and I've edited, and I've deleted, and I've added, and today I finally felt like it was complete. And it's full moon today too. There's that releasing point. So it's like,
Mhm.
wow, really perfect timing when we're not even paying attention sometimes, and then we realize it. We see all the stars aligned, and then we go, wow. Thank you for that extra validation there, and encouraging me. Like I always feel like astrology is like an encouragement to continue moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is so cool. Even if you don't know anything about it, you're living it, my
Hmm.
friend.
Right? Yeah, like that's the crazy part. Like you have no idea sometimes. Like, and actually, like if you think about it, you consider it, like most of the people on the face of the planet did not sign up for consciousness in this way. And at the same time, they're still feeling all the changes and the shifting that's happening in the collective. And I can only imagine like how hard that must feel sometimes to have all those feelings and not know where they're coming from, or not know what to do with the feelings that are coming up because you're unaware of what's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, or not knowing there's actually a plan and a divine order and it's not all chaos.
Yes, yeah, and that out of that beautiful chaos comes change.
Yeah, and growth and evolution and so many good things. I always like to say that it's always the darkest before the light comes and you realize
Yes.
that it was all for a reason. Yay.
Yeah, yeah, it wasn't in vain, and it's not to punish you. You planned it. You signed up for these experiences, which is another part of the human experience I wish people would connect in with a little bit more in that accountability and really taking ownership for the experiences that we have. Because again, like you said, like it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. It's happening with you, right?
Yeah, I think when we planned it, we weren't connected to the emotion of it. We were just like, what are we gonna do? Like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a pandemic? Like, what would we do?
Let's see what that feels like. And then everybody's like, no, we don't want to feel that anymore.
Yeah, it's like we have to remember that you can grow without challenges too, but it's a little bit easier when it's in your face and forcing you, I guess.
Yeah, you definitely move quicker, that's for sure.
Hmm.
Wow. So how are you feeling in the world as it's starting to, I feel starting to come out of this fearful state. It may not look like it at the moment, and I feel that people are starting to really come out of their shell at this point. Do you feel like it's been a bit claustrophobic, or um, like keeping people stuck in some respect? And do you feel that that stuck part is like there for them to have some different awarenesses of themselves?
Yeah, I actually don't even necessarily see it as a stuck thing. I think it looks like it is
Hmm.
that way, but I think it's actually been really good for those of us who didn't get sick or lose people, that it has not been good for them. I apologize
Yeah.
if that's been your experience for those who are listening. But for a lot of us, like even that situation, it makes you really rethink what matters to you in life. And I think that's a gift to have that opportunity to rethink and not be a robot and do the same thing every day because you don't
Yeah.
have to. There's so much more to life. So
Hmm.
I think like in the grand scheme of things, it has been positive, and I think we will see that in the decades and centuries to come when when we reincarnate and come back here.
Yeah, I feel
But
that
in the
too.
moment, it's uncomfortable for sure. And I've had to face my deepest fears. I think my biggest problem is I'm so empathic and I just care too much sometimes. So ever since I realized, like, oh, I don't have to watch the news, I
Hmm.
don't need to know everything that's going on. I've been feeling so much better. I do think there's something to be said for being aware and being a responsible citizen. It's
Yeah,
just that I choose my battles much more wisely.
I feel that. Yeah, I haven't owned a TV in over 15 years, and I don't watch the news really anymore. And the couple times that I did tap in just to see what was going on, I could feel the immense pull of the fear coming through the news and the commercials and, people speaking on the matter. And it was like, wow, okay, like, again, I'm going to come back to how is this making me feel? And if watching this is not making me feel healthy inside, then I'm going to stop watching it. Like I'll tap in for a few minutes just to be aware of my surroundings and what's happening in the world. And then I'm going to tap right back out and I'm going to go back into what am I here for? I'm here to share sound healing. I'm here to help people heal. I'm here to help people process their trauma and to be the best version of themselves. And that's what I'm going to focus on because that brings me joy. And if I'm in a joyful space and I'm in a loving space, I'm going to continue to raise the vibration of the whole collective with myself.
Absolutely. Yes. That's exactly what I want to help people do through my work because we're not here to solve every single problem. Being aware of all these problems doesn't always help us, especially if they're not our problems personally to solve. So that's why I love helping people tap into their piece of the puzzle
Hmm.
because your piece of the puzzle is what you're the best at and what lights you up and raises your vibe. And we can raise others' vibes just by having ours raised. It's like a candle that lights other candles. So I think that's super important. And it takes a high level of discernment that maybe we didn't need to have as much before, or we didn't realize we needed it. And it's like more important than ever to protect your energy and
Yeah.
your calling too, and focus on that.
Yeah. To remember that you're always safe.
Yes, we're always safe, even if it seems like we're not and everything's falling apart.
Yeah, I always imagine myself in the morning or when I do group or individual sessions, I always ask the person to first ground into their foundation, plant their roots, bring their light in or remember their light within, and then create a bubble around their self. And that bubble represents that safe and sacred space that they are. So sometimes, like if I'm driving down the street, like I imagine my car is in a bubble and everybody else's car is in a bubble too. And, we're all driving down the street fully aware of each other and our bubbles. And if we become unaware, then our bubbles just bounce off of each other and no harm, no foul. And I
Yeah.
really like that airy feeling and that floaty feeling that it gives me to imagine being carried in a bubble as well.
Yeah, intention is everything. It's so powerful. And it's like you really do create a bubble when you're imagining a bubble. That's like one of the
Yes.
really cool things about energy work.
Yeah, and people think that that's not real, and I'm like, oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is. I can feel my bubble, and I know I'm in my bubble, and I also know when I'm not practicing being in my bubble because other things happen that I'm not intending.
Yeah, it feels better to believe that there is,
Hmm.
even if you don't have proof.
Yeah, yeah. I always come back to that. It's in the beginning of my journey, it was more about, well, I want to see it so I can believe it, right? I got to see it to believe it. And at some point, the universe was like, no, it's about believing in order to see clearly.
Hmm.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to do my best to believe then. And sometimes that feels easier on some days than others. And I also know that when I trust that feeling and I go into that deep knowing, like, yes, this is what I'm experiencing. This is what I choose to experience. And this is what's best for me. And that is what continues to be until there's a shift and then something maybe even better, whatever better is, or something more aligned with me at that point comes through and shows me a different way.
Hmm. Love it.
So how do people find you and when is your book coming out? When will we be able to purchase it?
Yeah, so you can actually pre-order it right now and you'll get a bundle of goodies that you won't get if you buy it after it comes out. It comes out
Ah,
January 4th, 2022. But if you pre-order it at soulshineastrology.com/book and then put in your receipt details, you're going to get a bundle of awesomeness, including a meditation that goes through all 12 of your chakras into the galactic realm to help you remove your blocks and barriers that might be keeping you from that higher level of awareness around what you're really here to do. And then a workbook. So it will help you kind of start to lay out what you think your calling is before you get the book and actually dive into your chart.
oh, that sounds amazing. I'm going to have to
Yeah,
pre-order.
I'm so excited. It's very beautiful. It's like rainbow and sparkly gold, and it's definitely my essence in a book.
Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing your energy this evening. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
I think the biggest thing I want to teach people is to believe in themselves and not to settle for less. We create our own realities, right? We hear that all the time, but we really do. And you don't have to be unhappy or bummed out or heavy or exhausted every day. That's actually a sign that you're out of alignment. So I just want to remind people that, like, not feeling good is not your normal setting, and you're meant for so much more.
Hmm. I love that message. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for the light that you are and for being in your purpose and for showing up every day. I love you. Thank you so much, Natalie.
Thank you so much, Jess. Love you too.
Take care.